And I see that Motor Bread joined on here. I'm going to tell his story because so he's a friend of mine that moved from California out to Texas. California market is very high on dichlor, trichlor, liquid. And we all know that different markets are different, but he moved out to Texas, and then everything out here in the Texas market is Cal-Hypo. So everybody uses, the Cal-Hypo. And I think at the beginning there was, obviously the concerns of some of the things that you hear with handling of the Cal-Hypo, and that's the next thing that I want to get into. But this being such a market for Cal-Hypo and the cost of it being a lot more cost effective than the dichlor and the trichlor, which are kind of a little bit, crazy out here. Yeah. He did research. He started handling the Cal-Hypo and basically came back to me and said, man, I really just kind of did some research, found out about it, and I have absolutely no problems with the handling of the Cal-Hypo. And so in the next question, that's something that I want to address for, some of those guys that are out there that I think you hear the stories about Cal-Hypo and we always kind of remember the crazy stories, but
sure.
Let's talk a little bit about the handling of the Cal-Hypo and what are the best practices of handling Cal-Hypo.
Yeah, so it's really about education with anyone who's making, who hasn't on a regular basis worked with Cal-Hypo, and just the understanding of certain housekeeping that we want to do, making sure that if you're carrying around buckets of Cal-Hypo and you're scooping out of those buckets and distributing Cal-Hypo into your recreational water, that when you're taking the lid off and doing your scoops, that you're always making sure that you secure that lid when you're done with it, especially as you're transporting it throughout the day, in the back of your service truck. And then if you're using more of a 1 pound bag version of Cal-Hypo, we always recommend using the whole bag and not trying to just use enough based on what the recommendation is for the size of the body of water that you're treating. We tend to want to stay away from carrying any open bags and raising the possibility of some exposure to that Cal-Hypo. So it really is common sense in most instances with using Cal-Hypo, as it is with any other chemicals that you're carrying in the back of a truck or storing in a retail space. It's making sure that everyone is trained up on the hazardous aspects of it, making sure that they're using common sense and not leaving things open or exposed to the elements where you might run into those issues. But like I said, Cal-Hypo certainly has some of its characteristics where you really want to pay attention to storage and handling, but it's not unlike a lot of the other chemicals that we're working with on a daily basis, where it really is common sense and making sure that that you're handling it properly, that you're not leaving anything to chance in terms of something being exposed that might run into some issues. And that's just with the storage and handling, not to mention the aspect around the mixing of trichlor and Cal-Hypo and the issues that you might run into with that. And as we're talking about people potentially having to find alternatives to trichlor and dichlor as the market gets crazy and crazier for those things, that's certainly something that needs to be understood as well, as where the issues are with mixing trichlor and dichlor with Cal-Hypo in small enclosed spaces, especially as it relates to converting feeders over from trichlor use to Cal-Hypo use, and how we try to steer away from those situations. It's because of the residual that builds up in a trichlor feeder, and how difficult it is to really get that thing clean enough to feel comfortable to convert over to trichlor or to Cal-Hypo.
So let me ask you this, because Justin was talking about it the other day. Hopefully he's still on watching. So he is switching over to your Cal-Hypo tabs.
Okay.
But a lot of his pools still have those old tab feeders, because Texas is very big on building pools and then putting tab feeders in the pools. It's very common out here.
Right.
So if he wanted to switch his pools, and he bought a couple buckets of them and has started to switch over the pools that don't have the trichlor feeders, he's already switched those over using the skimmer-friendly ones. But what would you recommend to him with those old tab feeders that are there? Does he wait 4 weeks? Does he take them off? What is the recommendation?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if he's using the skimmer tabs already, then he's not incorporating those feeders in. But we always recommend just closing those things out, and switching away from using them whatsoever. And if the the opportunity presents itself down the line, we have introduced within the last year or so an offline feeder that we use in conjunction with some tablets that we introduced at the same time we introduced the offline feeder. And these tablets have a sequestering agent in them. They can be used in either the skimmer or the offline feeder, whereas we don't recommend the skimmer only tabs to go into these offline feeders because they don't include the sequestering agent that's going to help keep some of that calcium that's coming out of the tablets from coming out of solution and doing any scaling, as it reaches the water, and you may have those fluctuations in pH where you see some of that calcium coming out of solution. So that sequestering agent that we added in the quote unquote version 2 of these tablets help with that combination of an offline feeder and a tablet fed Cal-Hypo slow aerobe tablet.